This is AP Lit. We're going over the test from practice test. But the word consonants, it is the repetition of consonant sounds, but it's not at the beginning. I think I gave credit for all that because I didn't say it couldn't be. But what do you call it if the consonant sounds occurs at the beginning of the word?
Alliteration.
So that's a different word. I mean, sure, it's repetition of consonant sounds, but there's a better word for that. And what happens if it's at the end of the word and it rhymes? Well, that's wrong. So consonants is when you hear the R sound or the L sound or the S sound that doesn't come at the beginning and doesn't come as part of the rhyme, then we call it consonants. That was not the answer to that one. So any other questions about that? All right, we'll go into that. I mean, they have answers here. All right, 11. 11 is A. 12 is D, as in dog, advisable.
I got two right.
13 is C, will recover from his wound. See, look at C and D. Tell me why. Maybe you can explain it. Will recover his room, if possible, or will ever be well enough to return to the service. To me, they were really, really close. They're basically both true. So one has got to be more true than the other, and I picked the one that wasn't. But to me, that's a great example of how can I possibly distinguish between those two possible answers. Anyway, 14, let's see, I'm sorry, 14 is C, 15 is E,
Let's go.
16 is D as in dog, 17 is E,
Dog.
18 is E.
They.
Wait a minute, what did I say about 17?
E.
I'm
Was
sorry, I
it
don't know
E?
why I have trouble. It is C.
Oh.
Yes!
Oh, that's lame.
18 is E, 19 is
A.
E,
Oh.
20 is A,
Oh.
21 B,
Oh.
Party, can we be in
There's a lot of laws.
22 is B,
Oh.
23 is A,
Oh.
24 is B,
Oh.
and 25 is D.
Yes.
I'm at 50%. I think I'm still at 50%, nothing changed.
It could be worse. 50% is not awful.
It's not good.
If I take a 50% on the AP exam, I think
All
I'm
right.
done for the rest of the exam.
26, all right. 26, 26 is B,
Let's
is
go.
boy. 27 is C.
Oh, I crossed someone out.
28 is B, is in boy.
Let's go.
29 is D, is in dog. I gotta look at that one. I'm gonna look that one up in a minute. 30 is B, as in boy. 31 is E.
Oh.
32 A.
Yay.
33 D is in dog. 34 is E, an analogy. 34. 35 is B, as in boy. 36 is B, as in boy. 37 is C. 38 is C. 39 is A. And 40 is B. There's one I was gonna look up, but anyway. All right, finally, 41.
Right.
41 is C. 42 is A. 43 is D is in dog. 44 is C. 45 is E. 46, B, B is in boy. 47, A. 48, A. 49, B is in boy. 50, E. 51, B is in boy. 52, A. 53, D is in dog. 54, B is in boy, and 55 is C. I didn't hear any ahs or anything. Did you quit looking at them?
Yeah, my spirit.
I can't put it now, so
Parker, did you just quit? You didn't even say anything?
My spirit was broken.
I don't want that to be discouraging. I thought it was pretty hard. Probably harder than the actual test. Any questions, guys, listen, any questions about any individual one?
I got a 45, 44. I'm on my way to 45%.
Anybody get half of them right? More than half? How many? How many did you miss out of 55?
You miss or make?
Well, I can relate better to the missing than I can to making.
I just barely made
It does matter, it doesn't matter how many you miss.
67.
It matters how many you get right, but you know what I mean.
Shut up.
Anybody else have anything about that? Hey guys, we need to do this again, and we will.
I'm about to drop a bomb on you. 100% wrong answers.
Okay, alright.
Oh, yeah, we can't with you.
I turn to the Hollow Men. We're gonna read this again.
Why? What you?
I need to check it. Let me check it.
We were in that. Not me. Not me. Oh. Better than 5.
The last row, I got. Five of those were the last
Yeah,
row.
it's better than 3.
Yeah, I don't know how someone does it all in one session.
I need to like do nothing for like the week before, so my luck builds up, and so I'm wasting all on that.
I'm still, just guessing out of
I just go home, do nothing. I don't even drive, that's one thing. I'll just walk home. So my luck just stays like, it just ever so increasingly. So on that day of the test, it just. What?
Your luck will build up.
You said your luck will build up.
I'm saying for like the week before the AP exam, I do absolutely nothing, so my luck just slowly
Be
builds up.
really bad, like do really badly on tests.
So
And
my
then,
luck
so
builds
then your
up.
luck will build up.
So then on the day of exam, I can just guess on every single question,
Yeah.
and I'll get every single question.
That's how it
That's
works.
how that works.
I've wasted my time. Might as well just walk out right now. Come down to that. I mean, not only academically, but we're talking about luck. We're gonna come right down to it. You just gotta be lucky. What can we do to increase our luck?
We're thinking about this all wrong. We gotta take it from a different approach.
You know, there's probably you know those ladies who sold their soul to the devil figuratively by getting somebody else, their child, to take the SATs. You know, they're in jail. Both of them, I think, spent time in jail. I mean, was it worth it for those people? I mean, this is just, it made me think of that, is they were willing to do anything to do well on the standardized test, and it was ridiculous. How did you feel about that when you heard that somebody's mother and father were spending money on, surrogate test takers and things? I mean, for those people who work hard and do their best, and don't, they don't get always what they want, that was pretty discouraging. But They got caught, yeah.
Can I finish?
Yeah. All right, hollow men. Let me read it again. We try not to spend too much time on this, but I think I understand what's going on. Let me read it one more time. Maybe get one of you to read it. I mean, I need to hear it. Why don't we start with Patty? Would you maybe, how many parts are there? There are 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Patty, would you read the first one, and Pat the second one, third, fourth, and Lily the fifth? So that would be the fourth. All right, listen to the hollow men, motivated by the title, Mr. Kurt, a subtitle. He did, and we know that there are many hollow men in Heart of Darkness. So let's read it.
You are the hollow men, you are the stuffed men, burning together at peaceful distraught. Alas, our dry voices, when we whisper together, are quiet and meaningless as wind in dry grass, or rats' feet over broken glass in a dry cellar. Shape without form, shape without color, paralyzed force, gesture without motion. Those who have crossed with direct eyes to death's other kingdom remember us, if at all, not as lost, violent souls, but only as the hollow men of suffering.
Eyes I dare not meet in dreams, in the death's dream kingdom. These do not appear. There the eyes are sunlight on a broken column. There the trees swinging, and voices are in the wind singing. More distant and more solemn than a fading star. Let me be now nearer in death's dream kingdom. Let me also wear such deliberate strategy. God's coat, so spin, past days, and feel behaving as the wind behaves. No nearer. Not that final meeting in the silent church.
This is the dead land, this is their practice land. Here the stone images are raised, here they receive the supplication of the dead man's ear, under the twinkle of a fading star. It is lifeless and death's other kingdom, faithful alone. At the hour when we are trembling with tenderness lips that would kiss beyond prayers, broken stone.
The eyes are not here, there are no eyes here. In this valley of dying stars, in this humble valley, this broken jaw of our lost kingdoms, in this last meeting places we broke together in a void speech, gathered on this edge of timid river. Sightless unless the eyes reappear as a perpetual star, the anti-foliate rose. Death's twilight kingdom, the hope only of empty time.
Here we go around the prickly pear, prickly pear, prickly pear. Here we go around the prickly pear at 12 o'clock in the morning. Between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow. For then is the kingdom.
You can keep reading.
Between the conception and the creation, between the emotion and the response, falls the shadow. Life is very long between the desire and the spasm, between the potency and the existence, between the essence and the descent, falls the shadow. For thine is the kingdom. For thine is life is. For thine is the. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with the pain.
Thank you. Then I mentioned that the poem has 400 words or something, and only 120, something like that, are different words. So notice how much repetition there. Anybody want to just go straight to the big question is, what is this poem about? I'll tell you 2 things after we hear from Ted.
I think that like the hollow men represent people who just like don't believe in anything. And like, you know, from the very beginning says like had peace filled with straw, so like they don't really have like beliefs or thoughts or ideas on their own. And it describes their voices as meaningless. And like also, you know, early on when it says remember us, if at all not as lost violent souls, but only as a hollow men and a stuffed men. I think that implies that these people, though they didn't believe anything, they probably joined some cause on a whim and were violent in some way. So like that sort of shows how this poem is gonna focus on like how they're remembered. That even though they were violent, and that will likely be part of how they're remembered, they didn't really believe anything and there wasn't a meaning behind it.
Well, that's extremely helpful, and it coincides with what I was going to share. I would say, she said that people that don't believe anything, and I think that's what it's a picture of, is man in the 20th century. Now, that's the century of the 2 world wars and the Depression and the Roaring Twenties and the nuclear. Of course, this was before, probably, you don't know when he wrote it. But anyway, this is the state of man's mind, and I think that's a very good answer. What is life like if you don't believe in it? Do you remember, by the way, T.S. Eliot, was not a believer, was converted, and Dr. Betzel had pointed out that you can tell that in his poems. This was written pre-conversion. So this is his view of life before he was saved. And then, because he became a Catholic, at some point, I don't know his conversion story, he loved Dante. And so we mentioned The Penny for the Old Guy. That's both a reference to Guy Fawkes and to Charon, the Ferryman of Hell. And the Multifoliate Rose is also a mention of Dante. So I was proud of the fact that we had read a lot of Dante, at least a lot of Inferno. So that's a great start. So the question is let's just kind of glean back through it. What is the picture of modern man? And you mentioned the straw. There's nothing. It's filled with straw. There's nothing really there. They don't believe anything. Look at the first stanza. And I like this better than the questions. We can highlight some of the questions. So look at the first stanza. If this is a picture of modern man and woman, what does it look like? What is modern man? Look at the images in the first stanza. Yeah.
He uses the word dry multiple times, it just equals nothing, like just all so similar, and that's how we think and stuff.
Well, the fact that he only uses 120 words in a 400-word poem tells you how repetitious things are. And there can be good things about repetition, but what's not good about repetition? What is repetition often, if you use it too much, as he does, maybe, what's wrong with repetition? Nobody likes it, right? Up to a point, why? Why don't we like repetition? If it's good, we ought to be able to do it 100 times and it would still be good, right? But what's wrong with repetition? What do we usually think of when you think of repetition? This is so obvious, that's why you're not saying it. Isn't it boring? You don't like repetition, do you? Too much repetition, too much of the same thing is boring. So that's another aspect of life. They don't believe in anything. It's dry. What's the opposite of dry? If dry is not life, what is life? What image would have replaced that to show that instead of being dry, life is wet? The opposite of dry is wet, but think about it. Wet water is the source of life.
Oh my gosh.
Water is the source of life. Jesus says, we know that the water is a great image of life, with the streams of living water. So life is like, look, anything else in that first stanza? What's shape without form? What's shade without color? You know, so what would be shade without form? Isn't that the same thing? What is shade without color? I can relate to that one better. What is shade without color? It's black and white sketch, right? As opposed to a color painting. And, you know, there's a big difference in those two things. Life is not black and white, it's color. So these are all images of, what does he fear in the last part of that first stanza? Dr. Betzel said there's at least 2 kingdoms here, and possibly 3. And so let's just go with the 2, because he mentions the other king. What is it about the other kingdom and about modern life that also is highlighted here? There's those who have crossed with direct eyes to death's other kingdom. Remember us, if at all, not as lost violent souls, but only as the hollow men, the stuffed men, direct eyes. And we have to build on that, but there's this image of what's the opposite of community? And it's loneliness. That it's you know, and you see that in this picture of modern life. And it just occurred to me, isn't that what we're saying about the advent of the cell phone and the internet? People aren't interacting with each other. People are on their phones. I mean, look out the window, and not you wouldn't do this, but 4 people at a table on their cell phone. They're not talking to each other. They're using the cell phone, keeps them from being close to each other. Look at look at the third, second stanza. Again, with a pen, pencil, whatever, go through there and show me the images that fit this pattern of dryness, lifelessness, thoughtlessness, emptiness. That's where we are right now. There'll be other words we can use. What are some other words that show what the, and this is another way to approach any kind of literature, any kind of poem. It's, if you can't figure out what it's saying, look at the patterns, look at the language. What do you see in the second stanza? Yeah, just go through and circle the images that fit this pattern. The second stanza, eyes I dare not meet and drink. Rollins, what'd you notice?
I guess like the image of like a dream that like dreams that are like kind of empty and like death, and so like I don't know.
Well, take how, if life were compared to a dream, like it is in Heart of Darkness, as you get closer to Kurt, things become dreamlike. What does that say about a life, a culture that's more dreamlike than real?
It's like you wish it were something that it's really not.
It's all illusion.
Yeah.
Life isn't, you're living something that's not real. And notice that in the second, you'll notice this too about the eyes. There are eyes, there the eyes are sunlit, and there the tree swinging, and the voices are in the wind singing. You got swinging and singing and eyes. You've got the other kingdom, an image of what life should be. You have movement, and you have sound, and you have warmth of sunlight, and you have interaction with other people. You've got eyes, as opposed to this kingdom, where it's dry and lifeless, and more about rats and disguise. What about disguises? How's that an image of modern life? Yeah.
I think that like the disguises are kind of tying into the hollow men's like shame, and that they seem to be afraid of like being recognized for what they are. Because they say like eyes I dare not meet, and I think the disguises, also the disguises are like all animal related or like somehow not human. So like I don't know, there's somehow just sort of blending into their surroundings.
Yeah, and if we're disguising ourselves, we're not happy with who we are. I'm just thinking about the mask. I'm all about the mask. I wear the mask everywhere that I have to. In fact, I wear it some places I don't have to because I forget it's on, which I'm glad, at least I'm at that point. I don't, it's not uncomfortable. Maybe it slides down when it shouldn't, but I wear the mask in the car sometimes and I forget it. I'm not trying to. It's like I put it on when I walked out and I never took it off. I'm just so used to it. It's anything, people tried to make symbols out of the mask. I honestly cannot tell you what a lot of my freshmen look like. What I'm gonna do the last day, I know what you look like. The last day I'm gonna have everybody, don't tell me, I'm gonna have everybody pull their mask down for 5 seconds. And it's like, I'll probably not recognize them because I've seen them out there and I say, wait a minute, with the mask down, that's not what I thought they would look like. Did you know you look different from the nose up than if you put it all together? Have you noticed that? If you have not seen anybody with their mask down and all of a sudden,
I've never seen anyone without a mask.
when they pull the mask down, they just don't look normal.
I don't get it.
All right, turn to part 3.
I don't.
Do the same here. Give me about 5 minutes. Circle any words in part 3 that fit this pattern of soundlessness and lifelessness and dryness and aloneness, as opposed to its opposite, which in that second stanza you see warmth and motion and sound and even singing. Parker, what do you got in that third stanza?
The third stanza, like just images.
Images that fit this pattern, that with Cat's help, you've been very
I
helpful.
said, I thought cactus land, cause it's like a desert.
Right, what else?
And
What about stone images? Here are the stone images. What does that say about modern man? What does it say about this lifestyle?
that's bland.
But it's also stone images, which means what?
I don't know what that means.
Well,
That's
what do you
next
think?
level.
What should that,
I said that life in that sense would be prophesized, and that it would be written before it happened.
okay, what else?
I think of like, when you think of like images on like cave walls, they've been there forever.
Yeah.
So I kinda think of like, it's a timeless place where it just keeps, it's been going on forever, and it's just images of past people or.
Okay, very good, yeah.
That they have idols.
Yeah, and that's another really good response to it, is that in this lifeless land, if, in other words, to me, a land full of idols is a land that fits this pattern. We're really not living life, we're not interacting with other people, our life is dry and meaningless. They're stone images. There's not a person that hangs on a cross who's God and man. That's who we worship. We don't worship an image that's made, that has no life in it. It's almost like, get it? I'm not alive, I'm a stone, and you're worshiping me? What's the big deal? The stone is actually worshiping the creator who made him. Not the man, my man who carved him. The stone never stopped really worshiping God in its own way. Look at the fourth stanza. Lydia, take that one for us. Look at some of the language. And all of you do it, but I'm gonna ask Lydia to.
I guess it kind of talks about like, well, it says like sightless, unless the eyes are pure.
We can add that to that list
Mhm.
of what modern life is like.
There are no eyes, the broken jaw, avoiding speech. So kind of, I mean, again, it just talks about like an empty man, he has nothing.
But they're together. Look, we
Like
grope
senses.
together, but we avoid speech. Can you imagine hundreds of people together, they're not talking to each other? I saw that outside, not with the younger kids, but you see it all the time. You see hundreds of people sitting together, but not talking to each other. They're talking to nobody. They're actually interacting with the machine. And so, again, part of life, of human life, modern life, is we've lost the ability to interact, which is what we were experiencing that. And we can't see, and you know anybody that won't look you in the eye? I mean, I don't look you directly in the eye because that's pretty intimidating, isn't it? I get you by the eye, like, I'll look at you, but I don't wanna stare you down. But you know anybody that won't even look at you at all? I mean, they won't even come close. You know anybody like that? What does that indicate if somebody did that? If somebody, not the person maybe you're thinking of, but in general, what might not looking at somebody in the eye tell us about that person?
Well, either like they don't care, they don't wanna talk to you, or that they're like timid and they're, I don't know, like intimidated by you.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
scared.
None of which are good. And other things that you mentioned are positive things, yes.
They sometimes like disrespect you.
Yes. But isn't it also true that you don't, like in New York City, never been there? You don't look at people, don't look at them. You go right by. Why? what's the power of looking at somebody, looking them in the eye? Why would you be told not to do that in New York City?
Like you're onto them.
There's a monkey right
It's
there.
intimidating to be looked at.
In the streets.
Don't look at me. I don't wanna be looked at. If you're looking at me, what, you got a problem with me? I just looked at you. You got a problem with that? You know, some people would react that way, so no problem if you don't look at them. So, let's see, let's look at that last one again. Owen, help us with it. Find the word, this is really weird, we'll put all this together. You've been really patient, with this, but I think there's some value. I know I have only scratched the surface, but Owen, look at that last thing. All of you look at it. I asked Owen to tell me about the language that you see there that fits this pattern that we've looked at.
Well, first of all, something that I think stands out is, how he uses like, thine, for thine is the kingdom, and he talks about between the emotion and the response called the shadow. And for me, that, I thought that was just, it kinda went back to all the imagery in the first part, because like, between the emotion and all, our response called the shadow is like, I saw it like, it was kinda all the emotion coming together, and it was like, really just like realizing the shadow inside the person.
And what is a shadow? Literally, what is a shadow?
Darkness.
Yeah, but it's nothing, right? It's like we said before, it's the absence of any light. And so whenever you see shadows, you're talking about an illusion. It's there, but what is it? It's just what's not there. It's what's there. What about here we go around the prickly pear? Well, who would say that? Except they'd say mulberry bush when I was a kid. But who would say that? Children. And it's meaningless. And basically, it's meaningless speech. And notice that there's no consummation of anything. Between the idea and reality, so this is the idea, and this is the consummation idea. It never happened. Modern man. We have all these ideas, we can't get there. We're impotent. We cannot produce the result that we're looking for. Yeah.
I think that like a lot of this poem kind of works together to imply that there used to be something to believe in, but not anymore. So like, you know, this happens earlier on, we have like prayers to broken stone and like broken jaw left fingers. Also the fragments of like the prayer in here that are like, it's not complete, but there's something there, and like these people like know that these words should have some significance. But not really.
Here it says, for thine is, doesn't end. They have parts of sentences with no ending, and how is it all gonna end? We don't even get a dramatic ending, it's just gonna fizzle out. And I think what Pat said, this is life without meaning. It's the 20th century. Good job. We'll see you Wednesday. Thank you, that was helpful. I hope it was for you. Yeah, see you later. Yeah, we did. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're welcome to have it. We had no questions.